It's time now for Movie Spotlight, your weekly ticket to the world of film, from the hottest blockbusters to hidden indie gems and everything in between. And joining us today in the studio are our resident movie critics, Darcy Paquet. Hello, Darcy.
Hi, Alana.
And Jason Bechervaise. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, Alana. It's great to be here.
Great to have you, as always. Darcy, this week you're recommending a Korean independent film. It's titled The Price of Goodbye, and the film is centred around a funeral held for a coma patient who's not quite dead. Quite the interesting premise, to say the least. Darcy, what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, when I usually introduce independent films from Korea on this show, typically this is a work that had been released at the Busan or Jeonju film festivals and then waited for like a year or two before finally getting its commercial release. This is a rare case where it's a brand new film. It received its first screening at the Seoul International Film Festival, which wrapped up just a week ago. And now it's in theaters. So yeah, I mean, the title of the film, The Price of Goodbye, the Korean title is Godangdo, and there's actually a clip of the director online explaining what it means in Korean, because it's a very unusual title that's put together from Chinese characters, and then it's kind of a play on words as well. I won't try to explain it, but it's a debut feature by director Kwon Young-jae. He's a graduate of the Korean National University of Arts, and then it has a really interesting cast of characters. I think the headlining actors are Kang Ma-gun, who was in Lucky Chanchil and several TV dramas, and Bong Tae-gyu in the leading roles. But if you watch a lot of independent films, you recognize the faces in the other characters as well. Some people are describing this as a black comedy. I don't know. To me, it didn't feel quite like a comedy, but yeah. So that's the film.
It's a brand new film, first-time director. It sounds like it's already a project that's generating a lot of curiosity. I'm really intrigued to hear more about why it defies kind of the black comedy label for you. But before we jump into that, can you tell us a bit more about the film's story?
Yeah, so as the film opens, there's a group of doctors who declare that an old man who has been in a vegetative state for 2 years is about to die. And the man's daughter actually works as a nurse in this hospital. She's been kind of dealing with this over the past 2 years. And then at this point, her brother arrives at the hospital with his wife and son. The brother has literally been on the run from loan sharks in recent months, driving back and forth between cities to avoid being caught. On the other hand, the brother's son has just been accepted to medical school. And the son, seems to be really passionate about medicine. And yet, his family's financial situation is so dire that there's this question of whether he can actually afford to enroll. Now they have this situation with the father. And it's a bit uncomfortable for them to say it out loud, but everyone recognizes that when the father dies, the funeral will be an opportunity to make a lot of money when relatives and friends come and give money at the funeral.
As is customary in Korea.
Yes. And actually the brother's wife, things are kind of set in motion when the brother's wife makes a rough draft of the text that she will send when her father-in-law dies, and then pushes the send button by accident.
Oh my gosh.
And then they, in a moment of desperation, the family decides that maybe the best thing to do is just to temporarily put their father somewhere else and then hold his funeral and collect the money. Okay,
so it does sound like the setup could work as a black comedy, but you said it doesn't feel like one.
I know. I'm smiling as I'm describing it and thinking back on it, but, the film, it's really kind of sad and desperate, and as you're watching it feels quite grim. And so, there were a couple moments where I did laugh out loud, and yet, when you hear the setup of the story, you kind of imagine how it's probably going to develop. And, I had a potential ending in my head as soon as, I got the idea of where, how the film is being set up. And actually, it doesn't follow that predictable path. As it moves towards the ending, it does turn kind of more serious and bleak in a way. I think the movie does get better as it moves towards the end of the film. It's looking at things like, family relations. This is a family with a lot of tension, and certainly it's another Korean independent film that's convinced me never to borrow from loan sharks
Right.
because it's a horrible situation that they find themselves in. But yeah, it does get quite dramatic.
So it sounds like the film deliberately avoids the more obvious comic beats and kind of leans into the emotional weight of the story instead. On the whole, Darcy, how would you rate it?
I mean, I like the film. I think I'm going to remember it quite vividly. There are some films that afterwards it just kind of passes from your memory and it's hard to recall them. This film, there have been other Korean films that have been set around funerals, and, it is, a lot of films use that as a place to kind of explore different aspects of Korean society. And this does to a certain extent, but the way that it approaches it is so unusual. And, there are moments where it was just so grim. It took some effort to kind of get through it, I think. And it's not kind of it's not a hugely entertaining film in that sense. Sometimes it progresses a bit slowly, but the characters are interesting and the acting was good. And at the end of it, it did kind of leave an impression on me.
Jason, did you get a chance to see it?
I did, yeah, I did see it, and I think I enjoyed it more than Darcy did.
Okay.
I think it was really funny. I'll be honest. I don't know. Maybe that says something about me as a person, but I mean, there are just. I mean, Bong Tae-gyu, I've loved for years,
Yeah,
and
he's
in
great.
some of my favourite films from the 2000s, like A Good Lawyer's Wife and Family Ties, and it's just great to see him back here. And he's in those films, he's quite a goofy character, and then in this movie, he's really serious, and he's still he is very much, a waste of space, to be honest with you, right? Because he's just got into all this like trouble and. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought it handled the humor quite well. I mean, sure, it is quite morbid. It's set in a funeral home, but I don't know. Maybe I was in the mood for it. But just when she sent that text message to this like wealthy relative, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. And and they're trying to find ways to make sure that the people that run the funeral home don't figure out what's going on. And before you know it, they're staging a whole funeral because this particular time they didn't encounter too many obstacles, and so they hatch a plan to try and not get rich, but just to pay to pay for the son's education. So there are kind of there's social issues there, and pay debts, and so the issue the difficulties facing many people in society as independent films do, it very much does tackle those, albeit in a somewhat different manner, in a different location. It reminded me a bit of A Hard Day, because The Hard Day has that great sequence in the morgue. And again, that's kind of dark humor. So, finding humor in the least kind of happy place, right? And I actually thought the acting was really good. Bong Tae-gyu was terrific, and it's like less than 90 minutes, and it kind of veers off in different directions, and I found it quite unpredictable as well, and it's been a while since I've watched some kind of a film that's generally made me laugh as much. I was sitting in my office laughing away,
quite different reactions. But for me, I always feel the mark of a good movie is that different audiences can take away different things from it. So
and sometimes you're just you're in a different mood, right? And maybe if I was really depressed or something, maybe I would have seen it differently. But I've seen so many Korean films, and it was just refreshing to see a film tackle. I mean, it is dark humor, and directors like Bong Joon-ho, are quite famous for that. But I don't know, it's just felt primarily because of the setting, I suppose. It just felt. And just Bong Tae-gyu, he's just able to handle those kind of roles so well. So, yeah.
Now, Darcy, you mentioned this film screened at the Seoul International Film Festival. Do you think it has the potential to travel to international film festivals as well?
I hope it does. It's not really guaranteed. I think that the film, it feels very Korean, and
It is, yeah.
yeah, and so sometimes that can be a challenge for films, and that Koreans are so familiar with the setting of the funeral, um, and so when it's screened for an international audience, if they're not familiar with that aspect of Korean culture, then that's a bit of a hurdle. It's also true that I would say that on the international festival circuit, like, Korean independent films are not as sought after these days. They're not as trendy or hot as they used to be. And so, I'm guessing that the main audience for this film will probably be in Korea. Perhaps some of the Korean film festivals that are held around the world in various cities like London or Paris or Florence might pick this up. And I do hope that more people get to see it, because I think they'll find it to be quite unique.
Sorry, I was just going to say, sounds like an Udine title.
We'll see.
We're going to shift gears now. Jason, your spotlight film this week is Edgar Wright's new adaptation of The Running Man. It was also made into a 1988 film featuring Arnold Schwarzenegger. What can you tell us?
Yeah, sure. So, British filmmaker Edgar Wright, he's renowned for his genre fare. So, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End. I'm a big fan of his movies, as is actually Bong Joon-ho. They're very good friends. And Wright's previous title was Last Night in Soho. And yeah, I think he read the Stephen King's novel back when he was much younger, under the pseudonym Richard Bachman, and the filmmaker watched, I think, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version when he was a child, which is interesting because I think this is like an 18-rated movie. Anyway, we won't get to that. So
all filmmakers watch movies that they're not supposed to watch when they're 10 years old.
Unless I'm getting confused with another movie. But yeah, both of which are set in a dystopian future that centre on a survival game show. And and this participant, in the original, the first film, it's obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so he has to survive as he faces, these very dangerous killers, like an onslaught of them. The new movie begins in the same fashion. So it kind of, there's a lot of like 1980s nostalgia, which really pulled me in. Actually, it starts off quite well, and so Glenn Powell, he's the lead as Ben Richards. And you have this kind of media network that appears in both films, very autocratic. And this latest version veers off in different directions, at least compared to the 80s movie, because the Arnold Schwarzenegger film feels more of a team or a trio, whereas there's in this movie it's more of Glenn Powell's character, he's very much, central, although that's somewhat true in the first film, but he doesn't really have a team, like I say, although there is this other character played by Michael Kira, who assists the Ben Richards character, and there's a plane sequence at the end of the film, which is also interesting because the Arnold Schwarzenegger film begins, in a helicopter, so there's an aerial sequence, except whereas the new movie is at the end. Josh Brolin is the villain as this producer, it's very much an Edgar Wright movie in some respects, but we'll get on to maybe some of its weaknesses shortly.
Okay, well, actually, you started off by saying that you're a fan of Edgar Wright's works.
Yeah.
I heard some weaknesses. How do you rate this new film of his?
Starts off so well. Looking back at his filmography, some of his earlier films I love, the zombie films, of course, full of his British humour, and he's just a genre filmmaker, very much so. And the problem with this, it just feels very much like a Hollywood movie at the end. The first half of the film is kind of reminiscent of the 1980s version, but then the second half of the film just feels like one of these kind of Hollywood blockbusters. Like I said, there's this plane sequence towards the end, and that's where it just begins to fall apart, really. Okay. But the visuals are fantastic, and the sound is extraordinary. The cinematographer is Chung Chung-un, DP. director of photography. He's worked quite a lot with Edgar Wright. He's the South Korean cinematographer. He's worked quite a lot with Park Chan-wook, and now he gets paid a lot more probably for working on Hollywood movies, and so he doesn't really work in the Korean film scene anymore. But so the film is just gorgeous to look at. But unfortunately, it just, I mean, I don't know if did you watch it? Yeah, I mean, the second half just for me just felt just really disappointing. You know, it's like, here we go again.
Did you feel the same, Darcy? The second half was a letdown.
I mean, this one I kind of enjoyed more than Jason did, I think.
There we go.
Okay.
That's what makes it just such a great show, because we just agree the whole time. Doesn't make it very interesting, does it?
But it's, you know, it's true that when you look at other films, you know, by Edgar Wright, that, you know, particularly his early films, that they have so much personality and originality, and this one does feel less personal. But you know, I think the film, kind of its strong point is that, you know, it's landing in theaters at a time when we're all thinking about things like, you know, deep fakes and...
yeah, no, it's true.
I mean, it's very relevant to today in a way. And, you know, and the film is kind of heavy-handed in the way that it presents it. And yet, you know, I thought it, you know, drove the point home. I think the film had a lot of energy that for me kind of kept going up until the end. But yeah, I mean, it's true that to compare it to a movie like Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead, I think it's not at that level nearly, but yeah, I think with lower expectations, I think it's a good watch.
This film is being released by Paramount Pictures, a subsidiary of Paramount Skydance. The studio is competing with Netflix to acquire the Warner Bros. Label in what appears to be a hugely significant moment for Hollywood. Before we wrap up today, I have to ask, is this the end of Hollywood as we know it?
Probably, yeah, quite simply. Because if Netflix buy up, you know, Warner Brothers' like whole library, a whole studio is just going to disappear. And this follows, you know, the acquisition of 20th Century Fox by Disney. So it loses two of their great, big studios in the last, 10 years. It's it's a sign of the times. Whereas if Paramount buys it, then there are other issues because they're in cable channels and what that means for them, during a Trump administration. So,
Darcy, are you as pessimistic?
Yeah, I mean, recently I read a kind of a history of the studio system that talked about all of the different studios and the role that they played throughout Hollywood history. And I mean, it does make you sad that, the studios aren't really playing that role in Hollywood anymore. It is, I mean, obviously things have modernized and changed, but, Warner Brothers, even among the Hollywood studios, I mean, except for Disney, perhaps is the one that, seem to be kind of on the most stable footing and to, producing a lot of interesting films and really prioritizing the theatrical experience. And, Netflix is quick to say, oh no, we're going to keep releasing Warner's movies in theaters. And yet...
I'll put them in for like 5 days.
It'll surely be different under Netflix. And so a lot of people are really worried. And I think that, they probably have a right to be.
Ending today's movie spotlight on a little bit of a somber note, but thank you as always to both of our film critics for joining us. Darcy Paquet, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And Jason Bechervaise, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.